right, so we are recording and we are live, and I'm super excited this morning. Okay, so I'm Tanya with Back2Basics, in case you don't know my face by now. And this morning I have one of my favorite people with me. I say that about a lot of the people I interview because I only like to interview the people I love. But you really are.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, but you really are one of my favorite people. This is Angela Knox from Angela Divine Photography. And Angela's such a positive person, guys. Before we get started, I have to tell you, the first probably 3 months that I knew you, the first 3 months, I kept calling her Angel because she's like an angel. I'm like, yeah, you need to meet Angel from this Angela Divine. What? Yeah. So anyway, before we get started, I do want to just say really quickly that our thoughts and our prayers are with the families and the troops this morning after an incident in Afghanistan. We're with you. We're praying for you. And we hope you all come home safe. So, Angela, how did we meet? I can't remember how we met. What was it on? Oh, I remember now. Okay, so this was like really weird. I was on this women in networking thing online. This is during COVID, and you couldn't really get together to do personal networking. So we were doing these live network things. And this particular one was nationwide. And I came across a woman who was doing some business networking, and she introduced me to, she was doing like business coaching, but then she introduced me to a local coach who was very, very high energy. And she and I had a one-on-one, and after talking with her, you know who I'm talking to, right, Evie? And she says,
"Oh, Fabiana."
Yeah. I love Fabiana. And she says,
Yeah, she's great.
"Oh, you know what? You approach brand marketing very similar to this photographer friend of mine, and you need to meet her." That's how we met. It was an introduction to Fabiana. And then you and I talked, and you knew how much I hate being in, it's kind of funny. I hate being in front of camera. Like, this makes me very, but I'm constantly talking to my clients about getting in front of the camera. Again, do as I say, not as I do. But you were such a calming presence. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I think we went back and forth for a few weeks, maybe even a couple months before I actually got you on the calendar and went to that first photo shoot. And I dragged some friends and coworkers and team members to do kind of a team thing. And I just felt so uncomfortable with the idea, but during the shoot, you made it so fun. And I just felt so awkward, but you made it so fun. So it was kind of this weird, the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I love her so much. I hate this, but I love her so much. You were just so awesome. And then we just did another shoot a couple weeks ago, and I brought my daughter with. And again, you just made it so much fun. And you had even spoke to my daughter during that time about some feelings she was having, anxieties about school and not really feeling her best inside, even though she to those who know and love her, she seems like she's a very confident person, but sometimes we're really good at masking how we're feeling on the inside. And we kind of talked about that, and you talked to her, and she felt really good after meeting you. You just have this way of making people feel good. I just love that about you. So I'm talking a lot right now. Jump in anytime.
I'm just
I need more coffee.
I'm like, bring them on.
Angela, I love you.
Thank
you.
Oh.
Why didn't you tell
for all those kind words?
Yeah, of course. I shout your name to the angels every week. Somebody needs something freshened up on their site or their pictures. I see these, realtors are notorious for getting a headshot, a very stoic, professional headshot, and then it's that same headshot 10 years later that's still on their business card. Yeah. And you don't just do headshots, though. You do some very interesting branding. how did you, first of all, how did you decide, because you're pretty young, how did you decide photography was your path?
Yeah, well, I went to art school. And I kind of got to this level of, I always did darkroom photography. So that'll age me a little bit. So young,
Darkroom
but not
photography? What is that? You mean like where they
darkroom.
develop in the darkroom?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, old school.
So a little bit older, not super young, but yeah, like I loved doing that. And then when I was in college, digital photography started to hit more of the mainstream because like it was used by professionals, but not by like colleges. So what we did, because, you know, back then, like a really crappy digital camera was really expensive, is we would take film and then we would scan it and make it digital. So that's how we did our color printing, because color printing in a darkroom was really dangerous. It's not chemically very good for you.
Really?
It's like the chemicals are really bad for you. Yeah.
Wow.
Everything that's fun art-wise is bad for you, apparently. So yeah, I was doing that and I loved kind of this new digital realm and all the possibilities of like kind of creating like mixed media with it. And so I was doing photography constantly. And then I was also in painting. And I kind of got to a place where like I was going down this path of applying to the advanced painting program, applying to grad school, going to be a painting teacher. And my parents were kind of like, okay, that's what you want to do with your life. Great. But well, would you want an internship this summer before your senior year? And I was like, yes, I am looking for an internship. So they hooked me up with these commercial photographers, and they were like the complete opposite of what I do. They did like windows, boats, cars, food, like very like masculine energy photography, no people. But we
almost like
hit it
still
off.
photography.
And I love,
yeah,
all still, all like commercial. And we hit it off. And I loved working with them. And they said, hey, when you're done with college, if you want to come back here and have a job, you know, it's freelance, but you can work with us. And they showed me the business of photography and how it can be lucrative. And I kind of was like, you know what? I think I'm going to run this path. So that's how I got into photography. And I've been doing it ever since. Mm-hmm.
Wow. But you still do your art. Is that something behind you? Did you paint that?
That is one of my favorite pieces from college. So that's a bunch of scanned film. And then I was very inspired by David Hockney. And I kind of did these scenes where the theme was like showing one picture sometimes can't tell all the movement of the story. So like kind of like piecing together different pieces of photographs and film to create kind of this like full story in one photo. So that was like my thesis in college. And I did a bunch of these. There's another one here. That was like my roommate in a room. So I did a lot of like really cool local pieces. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got, like, I was a very fine arts photographer coming out of college, and then worked in this commercial company for a while doing their grip work and freelance and being their assistant and doing all like kind of like the things you do in after college, like learning to get into the business.
That's really cool that you got that internship. Some people just kind of have to fall in, and you kind of fell into that, but almost in a structured path. So when did you decide, I don't want this much structure, I want to bring some more artistry back into it? When did you decide to make the move from more of that commercial to, because you're doing weddings now, right? And you're doing...
Oh, I've done weddings forever. But yeah, it was so funny. I think I worked in the commercial field as an assistant and what they called a second shooter. I did another internship with a fashion photographer because I miss people. I love, even in art school, like all my paintings and everything involved people. I rarely ever did stills. I love just how humans are so like full of life. So I told them that, and they're like, oh, we know this other photographer, you should intern with them. So I interned with him for a long time, and he was awesome, super creative guy, really pushed the boundaries of photos. And I loved working with him. But like, you know, there wasn't quite enough work for me. And I kind of like, at one point after seeing all the models and all the commercial stuff, I was like, this is super fake. And everyone that I worked for was like, duh, like, welcome to advertising. And I was like, I want to do something real. And they're like, well, have you ever thought about weddings? And I was like, no. And they're like, you should go, you know, get into the wedding world and see what you think. It could be a good balance to this. So I met a photographer, did like second shooting for her. And then 3 years into that, I started my own business, and I like weddings, and I still do a handful a year because you can get really artistic. Like I love night photography. I love being able to use filters and effects and like on camera, in camera, really cool stuff to make something out of the box. So I think I'll always try and do weddings. And like, as I like get more into what I'm still doing now, like it gets smaller and smaller, but it's so much fun to work with couples who want cool artistic photos and who want
something different, not just always those.
Yes, and that's what I found about
poses.
business owners too. Most business owners wanted something different. So those are the shoots that I really love, where they want to push the boundaries and do something unique.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason that I use so much, not clip art, what is the word I'm looking for? Licensed artwork for the longest time, because I just didn't like how I felt. First of all, I feel awkward in front of a camera, period. But then to get there and try to pose and try to, and this, and I just didn't like it. And I didn't like the way that it came across. And so I never did business cards. And then when I did do business cards, I would try to take like selfies and then use those instead, because I just didn't like the posed look. I just hated it. And but people don't really hang on to my business cards anyway, so I went to pens. But that's a whole other side of the story. But I guess I just didn't feel like, I don't know, it just didn't feel authentic. And maybe that's a really cliche word these days, but I really didn't. I just felt I'm like, if I'm going to use such a pose picture, nobody knows who I am anyway, I'm just going to use somebody else's stock imagery. That's what I was trying to say, licensed stock imagery. So I used a lot of stock imagery in my business, and there was a lot of turnover in that, and we use a lot with our clients. And you introduced me this past year to brand photography for your business, and I had never even thought of that concept. I had seen some people that had some really cool shots, and I just thought, oh my gosh, they must be paying thousands upon thousands to get a bunch of photographers following around the city. That's really cool. But you just make it so approachable. When did you decide you've got a completely different business model? Let's jump into that for a second, because you came into photography when there are thousands of photographers out there. Not all known, right? They're not all known. They're not all professionally trained, but they're out there doing their thing. There's probably a few hundred professionals around the Twin Cities that people will go to. And they're all kind of, with the exception of a couple handful who have now caught on to what you're doing, are kind of shifting their model. But we're doing what you were doing 1 or 2 years ago, for sure. They all kind of did the same thing. You got the posed picture, maybe you did some landscape things, maybe you did an in-studio thing. They all had their set package pricing. You could pick 5 from the 100 that we did and license that out. You just said, and kind of did your own thing. Like, you just broke the model. You didn't just crack it. You shattered this model. What came through your mind to say, I can do this and it's going to work, when everybody else was doing something different?
Yeah. I mean, one of my coaches had this model idea, and I tried it out at first at the pricing she suggested, and it did not work. It was way too expensive. And not like, maybe that's a mindset thing. I wasn't able to connect with the people that could afford it, because I found a lot of people didn't want to spend 10 grand on photos a year, right? Like, that's a lot of money.
Unless they were big corporations, but you're entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. So like trying to find 6-figure entrepreneurs and above in Minneapolis is definitely a little bit more challenging than like if I was in LA or Chicago, right? Where there are a lot of those people. But a lot of the people that are at that level, they have a team, right? They have an in-house team, right? So that's kind of where I started to see like, okay, I need to change this model to work for the people I want to connect with. And I was like, I would love to work with big players who are making tons and tons of money. Great. That's awesome. But I also want to work with people who are like maybe in my shoes, right? They're like making good money, but they're, in their 3 to 5 years of business. They're trying to get their presence looking good. They want to do some of the stuff on their own. They also want to bring in a professional when it's time, but they don't always need a professional. So I tried this model of I come every other month. That was way too much. And then so finally I was like, okay, it was just trial and error. And then the model became, you know what? Why don't you pick how many shoots you want a year? Right? Do you want 2? Do you want 3? Do you want 4? Great. You want to add on another? Awesome. Because I think every entrepreneur is so unique and every business is unique. Sometimes you think you want like, the whole buffet line, and then you get one plate, you're like, I'm full. So that's kind of why I was like, okay, why don't you pick like 2 to start with? And if you want more, great, we can add them on. If you don't, no worries. And then I still have like some of the old model because some people still want, we do this shoot and you pick the images, right? So like I have those options, but also the continual photos, because I just thought people, like for me, I would love it if I could hit up a photographer like every 6 months and be like, yo, I'm ready for a shoot. Can you just come? And working with people multiple times over time, you get to know what they like and what they don't like. Right. So like you get to learn like, okay, I want to be shot more this direction, or I like my editing this style, or I really like when we did these kinds of photos. So that's kind of how the model became, and it's working now, and it'll keep changing. I'm sure tweaks will happen, but yeah, it's just been a lot of trial and error.
How long were you doing the trial and error in that? Because I went through a similar situation with my business. So I came out of I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've been, my life story has been one, oop, that worked, on to the next, oop, that worked, on to the next.
Yeah.
Oop, this just did not work at all, and I got totally burned, on to the next. And through that, it was very similar to what you're describing. Like our model in our industry was bundle your services, give them a package, don't go out that, and that's what they get. And there was a lot of what we call turn them and burn them type of situations. You get it on, you go to the next, you get it on, you go to the next. And I just kept going back to all these really high performing gurus out there that said, you know what, you've got to cultivate what you have and not just here and on to the next and here and on to the next, and work your database. And I thought, well, what's the best way to work your database? Maybe it's not going back and trying to reignite old business. Maybe it's trying to keep them engaged during that whole thing. And so I did sort of what you did. Instead of just trying to give them this massive package that was just too much for them to digest, we broke it down into monthly services. And so they're almost like a subscription, but we call it a retainer.
Yes.
Like you call it a subscription, I call it a retainer. And I'd say probably more than 95%. A couple of years ago, it would probably be around the 80%, but I'm looking up at my whiteboard, and it's probably over 95% of my clients right now are on this recurring subscription of services that they can adjust along the way. And not one of them is doing the same thing, because like you said, this person needs something very different at wherever they are in that moment in time than this person. And maybe they get there at some point, but in this moment in time, that's not what they need. That's not what they can handle. That's not what's comfortable to them. And it's not sustainable. So you came up with this pricing model that like put them on a subscription. That was much easier for me to digest than trying to, like you said, come up with 10 grand for the year. Now I can paste that out. I know what my monthly budget is, and I need a few more pictures. And you just made it so simple.
Yeah, and it's like if you need more, you can add on.
Yeah.
God, it took, I think, about a couple years, and I'm still figuring that out with my other business, right? Like you said, like, what do people really want? What do they need? But I feel like if you just create something and it doesn't work and you just like give up, then that's like, it's like that doesn't serve you. You got to keep trying different things and asking for feedback, right? Like I'd asked all my clients who I used to have a 6-month retainer. They're like, it was just too much, too quick. I didn't even have time to use the stuff. And it was like, okay, spread it out more, right? So I think it took about 2 years to get it down pat.
Yeah, I love the way you're modeled right now. I can see where people want to adjust over time, and everybody's going to change, and business has changed so much. this past year. You and I were
Oh
talking
God,
about
yes.
that too.
The
trends and just,
Mhm.
and not, well, you've got the trends, right? But then you've also got like this workflow influx. Like 3 years ago, if you would have asked me what my busiest time of the year was versus my weakest time of the year, I would have always said I'm dead in the water November, December, because the clients I was working with at that point in time, they would get all of their annual fees piled up on them, all of their continuing ed, all of their professional subscriptions, all of their memberships, everything kind of piled up on them at the end of the year, which was depleting their budget.
Mhm.
Plus their business slowed down at the end of the year. Plus then you add the holidays and the holiday
Mhm.
spending on it. So they just like their resources were depleted, which means they didn't have anything there to continue on. Now, and we've always had this discussion, that's probably the biggest time of the year that I think businesses should be ramping up and planning for the new year.
Yes.
But it was always this, I just don't have, there's no money in the well. And they just didn't plan for that. Like they knew it was coming, but nobody planned.
But they didn't have it laid out.
No,
Yeah.
and it was just always the same thing every year. And so I always just knew that time of the year, I was going to have to do something else to supplement that income, which is why I think I have always 2 or 3 different things going on in my life. But last year was crazy different with COVID. At the beginning of the year, everybody pulled back out of fear, thinking, I don't know if I'm going to have money. And there were some businesses that really truly had to close down and suffered great losses. And I lost some really close, dear friends and clients during that. And then there were other people that either never slowed down. So, some
Mhm.
people in the retail industry just like poof, took off and they had more work than they could handle, right? There was the workforce issue. And then there were others that just completely shifted and adapted. And my business towards the beginning or towards the end of that spring and beginning of summer just took off. And then we've started being able to network again. So I just don't know what the end of this year is going to look like and how people
Mhm.
are planning not only for this holiday season, that fourth quarter holiday season, let alone spring of next year. So I can imagine it's got to be similar for you being part of that marketing
Mhm.
industry. Did you see that happening previous to COVID? People kind of pull back at the end of the year with that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
I had so many clients cancel and freak out. Like, oh my God, my business is over. And, I was like, okay, it's going to be over if that's your attitude, right?
Yeah.
Like, or like, oh my God, like, but they weren't serious about their business. Not all of them, but like,
Yeah, but there were a few. Yeah.
my kind of like it's like they pulled everything and it was like, great, you can get out of your contract with me for this payment. And then I had a lot of people just never finish their contract with me and I already had their money and I was like, I'm here for when you need me. But yeah, I think last year I just started my second business in October and it was pretty dead to start. Same idea. Everyone was like, oh, I have no money for this. They've like put down all this money for like a video or a package and then they pull it. So like, yeah, it was a weird year last year. But at the same time, this year, I'm just like, it's going to be different. Every year's different. I feel like things are constantly evolving. So like, as a business owner, I try not to predict too many trends and instead keep inventing models that are going to keep the cup filled. So that no matter what time of year it is, there is some sort of residual income coming in, right? Whether it's from a retainer client, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then even those clients that, I don't know if you saw this too much, I did, because, but you do social media stuff too. You have teams that do this too. So you probably did see this where, again, prior to COVID, we could kind of sample what was happening and we could see trends over the years of where fluctuations might happen. But the last 2 years were just so, it started that fall before, really. You had the political thing that threw all the trends off, right? And then we had international things happening that threw those trends off. And then you got COVID and that threw all those trends off. And then the real estate market, that was just bonkers, and that threw a bunch of
Yeah.
trends off. And then you had the fluctuation in the stock market making people nervous,
Oh
and that
God,
was
yeah.
throwing trends off. So I feel like the last 2 years that you can't even look at that data. And so now when people are talking about, well, what's the best time for me to do this and what should we be talking about? It's almost like this, for me, it's been kind of like this weekly thing. And I used to be able to schedule out or plot out somebody's calendar, their social calendar, like a month in advance. And we still do that to some degree based on their own business information and things that they could share. But all of that other topical stuff, I'm doing a lot of weekly shifting on now, which is taking a ton more time than it ever used to. So even though there's not as many clients I'm servicing this year, the workload's been busier because of this fluctuating constant adjustment in that content strategy.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for these clients when I get on these calls and they're like, what is working and what's not working? Well, first of all, it's too soon to tell. And then even 3 months into it, I still know that we get a clear picture looking back, because now we've got another incident happening, whether it's wildfires or the hurricanes. It's like, I feel like there's just been one thing after another that pulls people off, even this past summer. And it could be good things. Like this past summer, everybody's content was shifting because the focus was so heavily on the Summer Olympics. So you couldn't just put out some general information, because it was just going to get compressed and drowned in the fluctuation of that conversation. So there's a lot of shifting in management in that I'm sure you see that, but this is where we talked about a couple times where, oh my gosh, and I just can't find enough people to help. But the business still keeps coming, and I'm so compelled to serve. Do you ever feel torn between, I just want to stay in bed today, versus, oh, I really should be doing this for this person, because who else are they going to turn to? Do you ever go through that?
Yeah.
Is it just me?
Oh yeah. No, it's not just you. And I mean, I'm always a yes. That's been a huge issue in my existence of business, is I always want to take on more. And so sometimes now what I'll do is I'll actually schedule days for myself, where I'll be like, okay, you have a 5-hour chunk this day, and you can either choose to work. Sometimes I'll feel motivated and I'll be like, I want to get this done. Or guess what? You take a break. I'm much more, I've done a lot of somatic therapy lately, which is regular therapy, you just talk, right? You just talk.
Yeah.
And somatic therapy is more about feeling your body and learning to listen to your body.
Oh.
So I really like it, because I'm also training to be a Reiki master. So I'm all about the woo woo. Yeah. So I feel a lot of my own energy, and learning to listen to your body and honor it when you need. And being I'm exhausted. I'm going to take an hour just to lay on the couch, turn on Netflix. For me, that's a way I turn off my brain.
Yeah.
And just I don't have to fall asleep, no pressure, but I'm just going to take an hour. Or lately I've been grinding through, and yesterday, when we had that little spot of free, it wasn't raining. I was like, you know what? I have so much shit to do. Fuck it. I'm getting off of the couch and my computer, and I'm going to go walk my dog. And it was oh my God, that's what I needed. So I think for me, it's always a challenge too, but learning to listen to your body during those times is essential, because when your cup is not full, you do crappy work, right?
Yeah.
Or you don't like doing the work.
Well, that's just it. I got into this. I always tell people, I could be working for a large agency. The company that that I helped start, oh my gosh, back into one of the companies I started or helped was back in 2008 or 9. I think we started looking at it in 2008 and kind of went live with it 2009. That started off with 3 entrepreneurs wanting to make a difference. And we had a very specific target market, and we had a very specific mission in mind. And within a year, they let the executive officers of that company let their investors steer which direction they should go. They let the client steer which direction they should go. And in little over a year, we became something completely different. And we went from this very hands-on service mission to a very systematic, bucketed, very stressful, gotta crunch the numbers, meet the numbers. And I went from loving what I did to just, oh my God, I gotta clock in. And I thought, how is this any different than me working at some other corporate job? And by the end of it,
right, you're like, oh,
I was still putting 110% forward because that's just me.
Absolutely,
but I was
that's who you are.
Walking through that damn door. And some people, when they hate it, they can't put the 100. They can't put the smile on, and they can't put the 100% in. They can't even put 80% in at that point. And you see those people in the workforce. You see them at the register. Oh, I'm like, you smile? I'm here. I'm buying your shit. Please smile. Right? But and it's just a different attitude, I think, out there now, where maybe that's just my roots. I was a farm girl, and we didn't always have it easy growing up. And I watched my mom bust her ass to keep our household afloat after a divorce. And I'm sure she's going to love airing dirty laundry right now. But those women that I grew up with in my life were really an inspiration to watch just how hard they worked. I had an aunt who had a business, again, entrepreneur in the family, still working the farm, still helping her parents work their farm, but running her own business, and then watching that collapse when there was a fire and burned down, and then have to reinvent herself later and going a completely different path from what she had done. But you don't think as a child that you're seeing that, but you're absorbing it. And I think that's what just kept driving me. Every time I got kicked, I thought, son of a, cry in the closet for 10 minutes, but then I'm going to get back up. I'm going to keep going. And some people just, I don't think, can do that. It's just not in them to do that. So where was I going with this?
Keep going.
That I don't know what's going to be in front of me. I know what was behind me, and I just keep moving. And I hope that my kids are absorbing that. It's one thing for me to just preach it to them and even model it to them. But even last week, my son had said to me, God, you just work so much. Oh, I know where I was going with this. You said you say yes to everything. There was a book out maybe 10 years ago, that maybe a little bit longer, time flies when you're having fun, that it was a woman entrepreneur that wrote it. I cannot remember the name of the title or the woman who wrote it. I wish I could, but I just can't in this moment in time because my brain is full. But it had to do with that concept of yes. So what everybody else was saying, you have to say no to some things. You just have to say no to some things. This woman said, you know what? If you want to succeed, say yes. And I think the book came out shortly after there was, or maybe it was the other way around, but there was an episode on Seinfeld, I think, or maybe it wasn't, but it was still the female character. Who was the woman that played on Seinfeld?
Elaine.
She was in another show.
Louis Dreyfus.
Yeah. So one of the shows she was in, it was that same concept where she said, I'm just going to say yes. I'm just going to say yes. And so she, in one of these episodes, she just walked around, and uncomfortably somebody would ask her if she wanted to go on a date, or she wanted to go on, it was the News Stories of Old Christine, I think was the name of her series.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
She's so funny, and she's inspiring in her own way.
I love her.
But there was an episode in there that was just say yes. And I don't know if that episode was modeled after this book, or the book was written after that episode. I don't remember what it was, but this entrepreneur said, just say yes. And it kind of stuck with me. And I was doing that before anyway, but I was feeling bad about it because everybody was saying, you know what, you got to draw lines and say no. But when I did that, people would get upset with me, whether it was in my personal life or in my business life. If I said no and tried to draw a line, it was like, well, now you're not cooperative, or I can't rely on you, or, it's always this pushback. So I re-engaged that just say yes, and figure it out. So it became kind of this approach of, I'll say yes, but now it's going to be with a caveat. I'll say yes, but here are the guidelines. I'll say yes.
Yes.
But here's my line in the sand. I'll say yes and make this exception, but it can't become the rule. And if it starts becoming the rule, we're going to pull back a little bit. So I still have that yes mindset, but a little bit more restrictive. But it took me almost 50 years to figure that one out. And I'm still, I'm sure in the next 10 years, right? So I don't know. I'm still tired.
That makes a lot of sense.
Angela's still tired.
It's all good. I mean, our boundaries are going to keep shifting and changing, and there's going to be points in your life where you can say yes to more, and there's going to be points in your life where you have to be like,
there's going to be a point,
I can't take this on. Like, I had to turn down some pro bono work recently, and I felt bad being like, no, but working with them was a nightmare the first time. I'm not dealing with that again. And I'm already working with 2 other companies on pro bono. So I was just like, no.
But see, there's your yes with your line in the sand, though, kind of, because I'll consider that, but under these guides, right? So there is still some of that. Like, I'll work with nonprofits. I work with nonprofits. Some of them I'm do pro bono work for because I'm part of the organization. And then there's others that I'm sorry,
and you
pay a small fee. Maybe it's a smaller fee then, but you have to pay for that time, because at some point that time becomes the pricing factor. So before it was, here's what the service itself is valued at, and what is the competition offering, and what is the, and I'm doing all that study. And then it got to be where, my plate is full. So now it's like a bonus cost just to have my time as a priority, because I can't have 50 clients who are all number one priority. It's just not going to happen. So now how do you shift that? And so for me, it's payment and loyalty. Who's been with me the longest? Who's a true advocate and partner in working that business together and talking about the work we do together, versus the ones that are, give me the best deal and I'm gone in 2 months. There's not that,
heck yeah.
Right? There's just not that loyalty there. But
you got to lay out your values. And one of your values is loyalty. Same with us. We're like, that's one of my biggest values, loyalty.
Well, I see that would be a big thing with the way that you've got your business structured right now, especially on that I keep calling it a retainer. What do you call it? Like a subscription.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Retainer, subscription, same thing.
Right. But that builds up a loyalty, right? It's really easy to say, oh, I'm going to work with this photographer tomorrow, but this photographer is in my network, and that one I knew, from when I was 5 years old, and the family friend has we'll try them. But
camera, yep.
Right.
Totally.
Right. But you're always there, and you don't just provide the service and a beautiful product and make me feel really good and special, but you keep in touch with all these little extra tips and all these little pick-me-ups and all these little things that you put out in social media and on your blog, Instagram, all these tips for businesses, even for people like me. And I adore you. Can I go back to saying how much I love you? Angela Lopez. I can't wait to show you guys.
You're amazing.
I can't wait to show you guys the new pictures that she just did. I look so, I look at myself and I can see in my face that I was uncomfortable, but a couple of my friends were like, oh my God, those colors, that location, that. And I'm like, that's all Angela. She's
awesome. Yay. Oh, I adore you as well. You're a very good person. We see a lot eye to eye on how we do business and what we care about, and also like helping each other help each other. There's plenty of work to go around. So let's all pitch in and make the good businesses shine, right? Get the money into the right hands, the power into the right hands, and then shape the world in a way that's more equal for women and all genders and people being binary, non-binary and
Yeah.
racial, justice for all. So I love that
It's like my
you're in that same
kids.
level of like, let's get the good voices here.
You've got the rainbow house. So I have to say, a few years ago, after a not so great departure from one of these businesses that I was part of, I was feeling really beat down. And I had always told my children, negativity out is going to attract negativity in. And you feel like you get stuck in this spiral.
Law of attraction.
Right? And I thought, that's just talk. It's just talk. But I didn't know how else to help my children or some of my friends who were going through some things. And I had heard that before. And so I was repeating it and trying to help them, get into a more positive mindset. And the whole time I'm in the back of my head going, oh my God, you suck. And I feel like that's the stuff that was coming at me. And that was the work I was getting. And I was just causing myself more stress. And when I changed that, and I don't know what it was just kind of this one morning I woke up and it was different. And then I started meeting the people that I wanted to meet. I wanted to work with more women in business. I wanted to work with more positive people. I wanted to work with people, even within my industry, who were doing what I was doing and not feel like they were my enemy in the competition, but that they were somebody that I could leverage and that I could become somebody they could leverage when business was getting too busy or there was just, there are things like I can do, but don't necessarily like doing. And one of these people I came across, I found out is a mutual client of yours, Angela Russo.
Who?
Angela
I
Russo.
love Angela Russo. We just had coffee yesterday. I miss her.
Awesome. And I can't wait to meet her wife, but she, when I was researching her and I was looking at the pictures on her site and I'm like, well, that looks like a familiar background. And I did some more digging and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I did some more digging. I'm like, oh, she knows Angela. So now I have two angels in my life. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So she's
two Angelas. Yeah.
Yeah. Two angels. So I'm just so glad that this year, I feel bad that there were people that struggled during the COVID, but then there were others that came out and were able to rally in different ways. Maybe not their business, but maybe their connections and maybe their thoughts were able to shift to a more positive energy despite everything happening. And I feel like that's what I got from you. That's what I got from Angela. That's what I got from Kim Chukalas, which is another amazing woman I met this past year. That's what I got from Susie, our bookkeeper. That's what I got from, there's all these people in my life, Lisa, and I've got a lot of great Lisas, Lori's, and I could just name, and Dr. Jan, I absolutely adore her. But there's so many people, strong women in my life now that 5-10 years ago, I didn't even, I wanted to be there, but couldn't find a way to break into that because I was still trying to compete with the men in our industry who seem to have a stronghold on the industry. And I thought, if I'm going to break into this, I've got to lock arms with them. And I think that breakup was one of the things that said, you know what, I don't. I'm going to start lifting women up and trying to do this own thing. And I see that same thing in you. Were you always this strong though? Because you to me are just positivity to the 100th power. Like from the moment I met you, I feel like even in our personal lives, those challenges, you're still able to be so positive. And you're very much a people person where I'm very much, I'm good behind the scenes type of person. Have you always been that way from just a little kid?
My mom and my grandma my grandma was very strong Italian women.
Okay.
And I learned from a young age to be extremely strong. And then I've done so much inner work. I've been on, 10-day silent meditations. I teach yoga part-time. I do a lot of meditation and inner work. And that kept me strong. And I mean, I don't stay strong all the time. It's never going to be perfectly linear. That's the goal one day. But Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of learning to hold space for yourself, tap into and turn on, align and believe in yourself. It's work, but it's the most satisfying work I've ever done. Infertility, all the things that have really been hard for me have taught me so much. And you just can't, you control, we have so much more control over our bodies and our lives than we think. So if we can learn to tap into our brains and use our brains in a way to create positive relationships in the neurons and in our chemistry, and then build these proteins, there's so much we can do with the power of our mind. So learning to harness that has been like a journey I've been on for about 15 years. And this last year, it's developed more than it ever has. So I'm very excited about that.
You were one that catapulted last year, and I'm so grateful you did. I'm so grateful I met you.
Yay.
It's your energy.
Thank you.
Throws
Mutual feeling.
It shows through in all your work, and it shows through in just you. When somebody meets you, you gotta be, I don't know who's listening right now. I'm sure people are going to listen back to this, but I really, even if you hadn't thought about photography before for your business, brand photography is a whole different animal, and it does really put a different spin on your business and your brand, and it puts a different feel, and it brings a different energy to that brand. I went from a very masculine looking brand when I first launched Back2Basics, very stoic, masculine, dark, unbending feel, to I think something very vibrant and approachable. I feel it is, and that's the feedback I'm getting. And I thank you, and I applaud you for that, because you pulled me out into that, and I love you. It's a love fest.
Oh, feeling is mutual. Thank you so much.
I can't believe we talked for 45 minutes. I think I did most of the talking.
Whew. No, this is great. I love coffee talk in the morning.
You're therapeutic to talk to. I look at your face and I just information.
Hey,
You're
put it
awesome.
out. I'm here. I carved out this time to be present, and it's been great.
You are always present in everything you do, which is, again, so if anybody, whether it's photography or one of her other little side gigs, I want to learn more about those. Just to get to know somebody else, a really strong businesswoman in our Twin Cities market who can think outside the box and will just refill you and re-energize you, please reach out to Angela. We're going to put your information at the end of this, but I just love you.
Oh, I love you too. Thanks for having me and being you. And this has been great. And yeah, I can't thank you enough for just all the good things. Feels great.
Can't wait for our next photo shoot. I'm going to get my little Santa hat going, and we're going to have little reindeer horns.
Oh my God, I'm excited. Heck
like,
yeah, this is going to be fun. I love fun stuff.
We're all going to have
I'm excited. I'm like, this is great. Yes. Okay. Let's get this going. Can't wait. We'll start planning maybe like late October, because then December, you'll need these, it sounds like, for Christmas, or if not Christmas, I'm very curious to what your campaign's going to be.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. All right, Angela, thank you. Next time I'll let you talk more. Go ahead, send me a bill for this therapy session this morning.
Oh my God. Goes around, comes around. So yes.
I love you, sweetheart. You have a wonderful weekend.
Love you too.
Talk to you soon.
You too. Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.